You are now entering the horror sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ, and we have another divisive film we're going to be talking about along the same lines as Halloween Ends. Also features the same director as Halloween Ends, Mr. David Gordon Green himself. Of course, I'm referring to last year, 2023's Exorcist Believer. Now, before we dive in, there will be spoilers since it's a new movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, it is streaming on Peacock. If you have seen it, hi. Let's go ahead and dig in. So, Believer is a continuation of the original Exorcist series. Quick synopsis: when his daughter Angela and her friend Catherine show signs of demonic possession, it unleashes a chain of events that forces single father Victor Fielding to confront the epitome of evil. Terrified and desperate, he seeks out Chris McNeil, Reagan's mom from the original film, the only person alive who's witnessed anything like this before. From the synopsis alone, you're like, that doesn't sound bad, right? But this has terrible ratings. David Gordon Green I don't know if he got asked to not direct the sequel because originally it was supposed to be a trilogy. So today, we record this in advance. Today, we just saw the post like he's not going to do the sequel. We'll get to that at the end. But I've been trying to decide when we decided to do this episode and this movie. I've been trying to decide out of the three of you, not me, the three of you, who hated it the most. Now, cheating, John, when it first came out, had already said something to us, and I remember that. Why? I don't know, but I remember. So I know how John feels. Kellen, I have a pretty good read on. But I wanted to start with the person who's going to hate it the most. So let's just go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off and start with Tej.
Well, you're making a lot of assumptions. Although on the Instagram when you asked me like what was your least favorite movie, I was like I watched a lot of good movies, but I'm pretty sure Exorcist Believer is going to be my least favorite when I.
And you haven't seen it yet, so there's no assumptions made, sir. This is going by facts that were presented to me.
Yeah, so I was not disappointed in my presumption. I did hate it. I'm gonna try and be nice, but maybe not that nice. But I mean, I actually did kind of have a little bit of hope for it because I actually am one of the few people maybe that actually pretty much likes the David Gordon Green Halloween, Danny McBride Halloween trilogy. I mean,
I do too. I'm not like, I think Kellen's the only one who just despises it out of all of us.
but I mean, like
Mind
in
the
the
first
horror
one. I didn't mind
world,
the first one.
yeah, pretty much everybody likes the first one. It's the question of did it need to be a trilogy. I don't like the presumption that anytime you do a legacy remake, now if it does well, you got to have a trilogy because that really it really puts filmmakers and screenwriters, I think, into a corner to not only limit what that first movie can be and not necessarily be a standalone thing, but also, maybe there's not that much story or that much meat on the bone to tell. My problem with the Exorcist franchise, out of all of the popular horror IP franchises, is it's the one that least needs and deserves to be a franchise because there's really only one great film, really. Exorcist 3 is a decent little cult film that kind of loosely connects to 1. 2 is god awful trash, and pretty much every sequel they made in the 2000s, including this most recent one, is just they're subpar. They're holding on to diminishing returns from that first film. That first film is one of the scariest, creepiest. You're not going to do a classical, Catholic church version of demon possession film any better than the masterpiece of the 1973 Exorcist film. So why even try? you know, uh, it's just it's a money IP cash in, and it's so obvious even to genre fans. Some are more forgiving than others. And I had a little bit of hope when they attached David Gordon Green to this thing, which we just obviously learned that he's not going to be doing the trilogy. I don't know if that means they're not doing the trilogy or if they're still going to find somebody else to take the helm. Who?
I think that's where they're, because everything I've seen says he will not be directing it, which
Yeah,
says to me they're still going to do it. It's just going to be somebody else.
yeah, because they 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 paid $400 million for the rights to do it. They're not going to have any chance of recouping that money if they don't make two more films and hopefully at least break even. After all of the uh, Blu-rays and distribution and everything kind of sorts itself out. But basically, they put themselves in a corner with paying that much for that IP and committing to 3 films to where if every one of those films don't make at least like $100 million in the box office, they're going to lose money. And that's a crazy situation for studios to be taking a gamble on, really just the nostalgia of an already uh, thriving horror fan base for a film that's over 50 years old now. Uh, when there's a lot better options to go. Like I was planning to go because I have a Regal pass, I could have got it for free or for 55 cents for the pre-booking my seat fee. And once all the reviews come out and everybody was trashing it and saying it was terrible, I was like, I don't want to waste my hour and 51 minutes in the theater having to go there, do the whole thing. So I waited until it was free on Peacock to watch it. And I watched it just a week ago. And it's so forgettable. Like it's been 6 days or so since I watched it, and I've already forgotten half of it because it's just so unmemorable. They take forever getting to any action where the girl, I like the concept of trying to split it between two girls. And I like the little bit of intrigue they try to build to where, they go into the woods and then they come back and they start like getting possessed after the fact and you don't know what happened in the woods. Well, spoiler alert, they don't really tell you what happened in the woods. That's such a missed opportunity. That like the whole thing that had any hook of interest at all to me was, well, what happened in the woods? It must be this great big thing. And then all they do is show a few clips where they speed up the camera frame rate. And I guess they got demon possessed. I mean, spoiler alert, that's that's what the trailer told me anyway. So I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. I didn't love how they treated the exorcism. I mean, pretty much Linda Blair spoiled exorcisms in beds for anything, So having them back to back with chairs, I liked the visual idea of it, but the execution of it, it was just a very lackluster. They could have done a whole lot more weird stuff with like the demonic stuff in that exorcism scene. I think there's just a whole lot of missed opportunity for a decent budget and a competent director to be at the helm of this thing. I mean, I've seen demon possession stuff a lot more effective in $1-2 million indie horror films now than trying to make a spectacle on a big old IP like this. And I think that's the thing that irritates me the most. As a movie, is it the worst thing I've ever seen? No. Is it my least favorite horror film that I personally watched in 2023? Technically, I watched it in 2024, but yes, that come out in 2023. But that's because I really curate the films that I watch. And when I really don't think I'm going to watch it, if we hadn't have done it for this show and already booked it, I wouldn't have watched it. I'd probably never watch it. I don't think I ever watched whatever the one was. It Dominion? I don't think I ever watched Dominion because it got terrible reviews and I didn't like the one before it. So I was like, well, that's just more crap. Maybe I did watch Dominion. I don't even remember it because, that's how pretty much all these sequels go. It's a one film franchise and they need to just put it to bed. William Friedkin's dead. You're not going to make a better Exorcist movie. And God have mercy on the soul of anybody that tries to remake that film because that'll be like Psycho 98 all over again. It's not necessary. Leave it alone. Now I'm not usually this way with franchises. Like you could technically say that about John Carpenter's Halloween, right? But I like a lot of the Halloween sequels. Um, and though they're maybe not technically as great as the first one, at least they do something different, or they closely approximate. Like number 2 is not as good as number 1, but it's the next best thing as we're gonna get. You don't even get that gradation in the Exorcist series. It's like number 1, one of the scariest, greatest horror films of all time. Number 2, one of the worst pieces of garbage that makes absolutely no sense. Number 3, a pretty good middle of the road cult film for what it is. And then everyone after that, just absolute garbage. I mean, please, Hollywood. I nobody's going to listen to this and not make 2 more movies that they're already committed for hundreds of millions of dollars to make. That's just what irritates me. Is it's just such an obvious IP grab. You could, what this costs, like 20-30 million dollars, something like that. That's usually what the Blumhouse, that level of thing is. And it's like, for that amount of money, think of how many pretty good indie horror films you could have made for $1 million that would have all been better than this. I mean, that's just what irritates me. The inequality and I think that's changing. I do think that that's changing. The inequality in where that mid-level budget for Hollywood standards is, and everybody else playing with these micro budgets, $1 million or less, just trying to make your best horror film by the skin of your teeth kind of thing. And as I'm starting to dive into that world, I'm right there with the people there, just trying to have a story. I think that's the biggest problem with a lot of these things, is that the story is not there to build. And you can throw money at the screen all you want to. You can get competent, good actors, pay them good money, waste a lot of good money on something that just wasn't there. And I think that's what irritates me the most. As a film, it's just okay. I'll probably never watch it again in my life. I've seen plenty worse films, don't get me wrong. But it just irritates me that I have to watch these films because they're in a franchise. Everybody's talking about them. I want to be a part of the conversation. I want to be able to talk about them on the podcast and stay relevant and whatnot. But it pisses me off that I have to do this for subpar films when there's really no reason, with the talent involved, that they should make that bad of a movie. That's all I got to say. Who's next?
Damn. So yeah, I love Exorcist 1, one of my favorite horror films ever. I think it's perfect. I think it's so much more than just a horror film. I think there's so many things in that film that dive into a lot of things that happened in the 70s and the culture, and especially, you can look into like child abuse with Reagan. There's a lot of scenes in that movie that sort of lend itself to Reagan having child abuse, and just the way Reagan gets possessed in the movie is so slow. It's like
well, they literally broke her back. And
yeah, she pees herself at the party, and it's like a slow progression. It's one of the best movies ever. So it's kind of
themselves at a party, though.
Huh?
If peeing yourself at a party is a sign of demonic possession,
we're all possessed.
Yeah, right. But that being said, I mean, you're never going to beat Exorcist 1. I do disagree. Exorcist 3, I think, is a great film. I think William Peter Blatty did a magnificent job with that, because he talked about the 2 characters in the first movie at the end of the movie. And I just loved George C. Scott in that movie. He does such a great performance. I mean, I can understand it's not maybe for everybody, but in my opinion, it's a terrific movie. It's the best thing you could possibly do for a sequel without it being ridiculous.
It's
right?
got one of the best jump scares in all of film.
Absolutely. This movie, yeah, I saw it in theater, saw it again the other day. It's really interesting because I don't hate the movie, but it's just so disappointing. It's split down the middle. It's exactly a 50-50 split for me with this movie. Leslie Odom Jr. is the lead. He's a great actor. He's awesome in Hamilton. He's awesome in like everything he does.
That's who that is.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And they put a great actor opposite a shitty actress. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't good in this, though.
Well, no, he was good in this. He was totally believable. And I will say, if they ever need to do an MC Hammer biopic, he should play MC Hammer. I swear that would be great. But he's wonderful. I love the father-daughter relationship at first. I thought it was very believable. I thought the whole beginning scene I liked because it was chaotic. It was in a foreign country, and it was kind of an homage to the original Exorcist where Max von Sydow's in Iraq. So it's kind of like the chaos of everything happening, and she gets the blessing and then the earthquake. So I could see there was a lot of there was like an homage there. And even the first part of the movie, it's a slow burn. I like the vibe of it. Like when the daughters go missing, it's kind of like that movie Prisoners, where they're looking for the kids and you don't know what's happening. I mean, the first half of this movie, I really was with it. I loved it. I loved even when she came back and she's in the house and she's acting strange and he's like in the bathroom. I was like, man, they're really doing something here. And then Ellen Burstyn showed up, and that's where it nosedived for me. It was like, it's amazing. I actually timed it on the movie. I was like, this thing is so great right until like 1 hour. And then it just like falls off for me. And the editing of the film is very odd. It's like frantic. It's a little bit all over the place. And I think what David Gordon Green was trying to do is he was trying to capture that spirit of The Exorcist that William Friedkin did, because William Friedkin had a lot of odd editing too. He was trying to get that sort of strangeness about the movie. It doesn't work exactly the same, but I definitely get why he was doing that. But yeah, I mean, once they come back from the woods, once Ellen Burstyn comes in, that's just where it loses it for me. When you first see her, she meets Leslie Odom Jr. They're talking, and there's a line in there that is so stupid. She says, she's like, yeah, they wouldn't let me in there because of the damn patriarchy. That is the stupidest thing, because in the original movie, she was an actress, like Christine. Oh, her name was Chris McNeil, right? So Chris McNeil was an actress. Her daughter was possessed. And the reason she did not go up there was because she was an actress. She wasn't in the Catholic Church. She wasn't a priest. She had no idea of anything. And she knew that it was only going to make it worse. It was going to make the whole situation more dangerous. So I thought that was like such a stupid line to write in a script, because that's one of those things that when you write it, as a writer, you would think you would catch that and be like, yeah, that just doesn't really add up to the original plot, But that's also one of those gotchas in Hollywood where they want to try to make it, woke.
I had to
for no
pause
reason.
the movie to get my eyes back down from my skull because I rolled them so hard when I heard that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Wokeness alert. Yeah, we're trying to beat you over the head with a message.
Yeah. And the thing that did bother me too in ways was when the girls come back. So the idea of what happened in the woods, I think, was that first off, what got me was they're in that classroom. They're mumbling, right? They're whispering. I couldn't hear a damn thing in the theater when they were doing that. I watched this on Peacock. I finally could hear what they were saying. Because in the theater, all you hear is like, and you're like, what's happening? And then they go in the woods, and you're like, I couldn't hear any of that, right?
And
so
then
they go in the
cats
woods.
come. Then the cats come.
Yeah. Right. The kitty cats come in. So they go in the woods. They do their little thing where the Leslie Odom Jr.'s daughter is trying to talk to her mom who died in the earthquake. And the idea is when they come back, I think their feet were burned, so they were in hell for 3 days, and they came back just like Jesus. So that's the idea, is they were in hell.
Which is a ludicrous idea.
It is. But what got me was that in this movie, they come back and they're automatically crazy. Like the girls are like instantly like, there's something wrong. In the original movie.
Wouldn't you be if you spent 3 days in hell, John?
Well, that is true. That is true. If Reagan went to hell, I guess so. But like in the original movie, Reagan, it kind of started out like she had some sort of a virus. Like she was acting weird. She was sick. They took her to all these doctors. And then it took a long time before Reagan started like lashing out at people. And then because that was kind of how the possession progressed. In this movie, it was like they come back, they're possessed, they're crazy as fuck, like immediately. And And then what was funny is the fathers. So you have Leslie Odom Jr. and then you have the Southern Baptist parents, right? They immediately, like within like maybe a day, they're like, oh, it must be demon possession. It's got to be demon possession. It's like it took so long in that first movie for Chris McNeil to think that, like to get to that point where she was like, oh God, this is not scientific. It
Well,
took
that
so
was
long.
because, John, they didn't have a good Southern Baptist in there. They were trying to
Well.
pay attention to the Catholics.
Well, they had the Catholics. I mean, even then. But you think even Father Karras in the original, he was a skeptic. He even was like, "Are you sure that's not really something you see a lot? Is this?" I mean, it's just the writing is so, it's not fair because you're never going to match that original. But that writing was so much better in the original. But yeah, I mean, it was just, they're playing on a lot of religion in this movie. And then you've got the ending, which is just hilarious because it's basically like this whole we are the world, we are the children, let's all get together and fight the evil together, the Avengers.
So I have a note about that in my notes, and it's like it's the Catholic Avengers, although they weren't all Catholic, but that's exactly is the religious Avengers. That's what it was, like all these different people from all
It's
different
like if the
walks of life.
Marvel
Let's get together.
universe of Catholics joined with the DC universe of evangelicals to fight the devil.
Yeah, that was so odd. I did enjoy the choice part, like that whole situation. I did like that part about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I did like, I mean, I felt I felt the dramatic tension and the kind of the whole problem of the situation. I mean, it was hard, it was dark. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a hard situation and the actors did the best they could. I think that it's just so ridiculous the way they played it out. Like even when Ellen Burstyn shows up, they break into their house. They go into these people's house. They just, oh, no one's here. Someone's here. Let's just break in. She goes upstairs. She has this showdown, gets stabbed in the eyes. I'm
That's
like,
the worst scene in the whole movie.
what the hell? Like, Doug, what in the fucking hell? And it's like, I was so disappointed because, like, I'm sitting there in the theater and this is all happening. And I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, this movie, I honestly thought for a while that David Gordon Green made half the movie. And then all of a sudden they were just like, we're going to do this at the end. You can't have any say in it because it's
it definitely felt spookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part for sure.
It's so strange. I mean, at the end, they're all doing their thing, trying to fight it. You got the vapor in the air, the ecto cooler green stuff going on the girl, and then of course you've got the hot tag. The Catholic priest comes in for the hot tag, and everybody's cheering, and then he gets the crankaroonie, right, and dies. And that was, I will say, at the end, the choice. I do agree that was like interesting because that kind of harkened back to the first one where in the first one, really, it was Father Karras making the choice. It was him saying, come into me, take me. Someone's going to lose here, but take me. And in this one, it was like, it was the same kind of thing. It wasn't like this idea that faith won. It was more this idea that a person chose their life over someone else's, or, that sacrifice. Right. So I did understand that and I appreciated it. I just, holy crap, like how they got there. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done.
The holy crap, was that a
but...
pun? Was that an intended pun?
No.
Calling this movie holy crap? Oh.
Right. It should be, right?
That is what this movie is. That was
the tagline.
Holy crap. And then, of course, you got Linda Blair at the end. I mean, that was cool to bring her back. I figured they were going to get her for something. But it's just, man, it's just so disappointing. Like, there was so much possibility here, and I don't hate it. I really just wonder what the hell happened. And I don't know how you could have done it differently. Part of me thinks maybe if you just would have focused on the one dad and the daughter, maybe that would have been better. But
I wonder if there was something underlining with David Gordon Green, just because the backlash he got for this is nothing compared to Ends. No. So if he was going to step away from stuff, it would have been Ends, even though I guess technically that was already done. And I don't know if I think the trilogy was announced before those movies came out. So whoever made the films, whatever, still like couldn't back out. But actually, we saw Ends and we're going to go a different direction.
Well, there's another thing too with how like the guilds work, and I'm pretty sure with if it's anything like how the Writers Guild works, the Directors Guild, like if you directed at least 51% of the movie, I think you get the director credit.
And that could have been what it was. They could have kicked him out. But okay, the last thing
I wouldn't be
say,
surprised to hear like there was a whole big studio took it over 3/4 of the way through it deal come out.
yeah, and that would be believable knowing how these things go. I would say the last thing, and I'm going to pass it on, is I thought it was so strange that when they get the girls out and they take them to the house and put them on the chairs, so they get Leslie Odom Jr.'s daughter out of the mental institution. She's like clearly insane and dangerous, and they just pull her out. Like, that's illegal, right? You couldn't do that. Like, there's no place on earth that would let you pull I was just kind of like, what the hell? Are we in fiction land? Like, how is this even possible?
Well, it was demonic possession, so yeah, we were in fiction land.
Yeah. Like you said, Spookies is kind of a good comparison. But yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys think. I don't know. It's a mess for me.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off of what John finished with, that was the same thought I had. Is what doctor's going to be like? Oh, she's possessed.
Right.
Stop the meds we've been giving her. It's not psychosis. It's the devil. Get her out of here. We need this bed for somebody that really has problems. Like, that did not make any sense. And I can say that because I'm a nurse. I work in hospitals. There's not a doctor alive that would have been like, yeah, you can take this patient that's obviously suffering from something because you think it's a possession. Oh, it's demons? I was way off. I said borderline personality disorder. Silly me. What a dumb bitch I am as a doctor. Oh, they should take my license. Anyway, but this movie is a movie. I didn't hate it. I didn't like it. I nothinged it. I cared less about this movie than I care about the color of carpet at the Pentagon. I don't care. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to see it. This movie, if I'd have never watched it, and it would not have changed the course of my life because it didn't do anything other than be a movie that I watched. Real quick, Ann Dowd, I don't know if she's trying to get typecast as a nun or a woman of faith, but between Handmaid's Tale and this, she's really veering down that path. So, Ellen Burstyn getting her eyes poked out. Jay knows I hate eye stuff, but at that moment, I just sat back in my chair and I was like, this is the new throat slash. That was like the big thing in movies, is somebody to get their throat slashed, and everyone's like, oh, the thought of having your throat, getting your eyes gouged. That's the new thing to throw into a horror movie when you want something to make people cringe or go up their spine. Is, let's just have somebody get their eyes gouged out.
But you still might want them to live, to have a legacy cameo at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want them dead, but you want them taken out of the equation. So gouge their eyes out. I will say that was probably the most evil thing in the whole movie when it said, "You want to see Reagan? Open your eyes." I was like, okay, that's pretty demonic. that's about the most evil thing that thing could have done.
It was a little Freddy Krueger-ish, wasn't
it? Yeah, like demon puns. I feel like, and this may just be me, I feel like this movie could have been good if it was shot completely different. And what I mean is, I feel like if it was shot like Signs, and let me explain. I feel like if you went in with the girls being possessed, have the father who had lost faith going to a priest and saying, I need your help, then go back in time a little bit and show a little piece of maybe where he starts to lose his faith. And then you start with them going in and starting to try, because you've got 2 kids. So you can stretch out what's going to happen between them. You can bring more people in later as they start to realize it's a possession. I think you can stretch that out and keep the tension of the possession of these innocent children, basically, and stretch that for at least 3/4 of the movie, with flashbacks to why he would have lost his faith, leading up to the point of him finally realizing that this is a possession. So I think if they would have structured it different, my reason for saying that is because at no point do you really care about the characters. You don't care about what happened to the father because it's so quickly done. You don't have time to really process it emotionally as a viewer or mentally, of him losing his wife and almost losing his child.
And
You
what's
don't have
funny
time.
is this is not a short movie.
No,
It's not a short movie, but it feels like they rush everything.
And see, I disagree. I disagree slightly. I feel like he was the most likable character in the whole thing.
Likable
Well,
is
by
fine. I just don't
default.
think you care. I mean,
Yeah, I guess I felt bad. I did feel bad for him though. Let me say it that way. I didn't feel bad, obviously the little girls, but like the Jennifer Nettles, but I didn't feel bad for her or her husband ever. Him, I did actually feel bad for. So character development is my thing. Like if you don't develop the characters, I don't give a damn about it. I don't like this movie. But he just got under that line for me.
But speaking
Yeah.
of
And-
the
and-
character development, you get zero character development for the little white girl. Like it's obvious they chose her to die because the only character they built up at all in this whole movie was the guy's daughter, the little
yeah, and like John said, it's a long movie, but everything feels rushed. Like the religious family realizing day 2, oh, it's demons. They got our little girl. It's the demons. Like there was no, and it was mentioned before. That's what The Exorcist did so good is they built up. It was little by little. It's not like the demon just came in and instantly took them over, which is what happens in this movie. They're possessed. It's not like there's you can almost feel like in the original, like the demons slowly taking over Reagan, where in this one the demon's like gotcha. So everything feels rushed up to even to the actual exorcism part. The part that got me with the priest coming back, that was like WWE pop, like The Rock coming back recently. That was the priest walks in and his name is Priest Cena.
That was the hot tag.
Yay!
and then immediately
Snap.
proceeds to die.
The problem for that, and even I was a little bit like, oh, he's here, yay, he came back. I mean, you knew he was coming back, but
And he got thrown over the top rope like first thing.
Yeah, he jumped in the ring and got Kane chokeslammed right back
My
out.
God, it's the Catholic priest.
Somebody stop the damn exorcism.
The devil stomped a mud hole in him.
And that's the bottom line, because Satan said so.
Oh, that's funny.
The problem with that is if they had the ability to snap somebody's neck at any point in time, why are you even trying? Like at that point, I would be like, throw the kid away. This is not getting my neck snapped.
Oh,
Like,
well, he did touch them. That was what he messed up on. He touched them because you remember they said don't touch them. He grabbed their heads. I think that's why.
Yeah, but oh god, ugh. I just the demon having that much power over the environment kind of takes it away from me. Differently in evil, when evil lurks, because it was passing through people and controlling people. Like I felt like this they tried to go shock value maybe by making them even more powerful. And I think nuance in movies like this is what really works. If you're going to do a possession film, nuance, your shock value needs to kind of more or less be a shock, like when evil lurks, when the dog snatches that girl. It happens so quick, but everything else in that movie leading up to that point is very nuanced. It's very slow. Even the ending, the way that movie ends, it's like a crescendo. Everything in this one felt like here's another thing that's happening.
When Evil Lurks is in like a whole different league of film to this film.
Yeah, and like I said, it's probably one of the best possession movies I've ever seen. It may be the best possession movie since the original Exorcist. I mean, nothing will top the original Exorcist. You can, I mean, they can try, and something could, but there's just something so special about that movie. The visuals, there's things that people still quote from that movie. I mean, it's even used in satire in the Scary Movie. Scary Movie 2, I think, is the one, with Leslie Nielsen as one of the priests. That's when you know you've made it as a cultural phenomenon, is when your movie ends up in other movies or pieces of it. Nothing from this will ever end up anywhere except the dollar bin at a Walmart, because it's not good. It's not bad. The acting's fine. Jennifer Nettles is the treasure, and I adore her. And Jay, you shut your whore mouth because she is delightful as a human being. but even her character in this movie, you're just like, ugh, ugh,
Yeah.
ugh.
Stick to singing.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's almost like they want to beat you over the head with a religion, but not be a religious movie. I don't know how to explain it. Like you said, the Jesus Avengers, or the collection of random religious people all in a room to try to perform an exorcist from a book. So yeah, to summarize everything, I didn't anything this movie. If I ever watch it again, it'll probably be by accident. So, Jay?
Maybe instead of like the Catholic Avengers or whatever, I just thought about the Captain Planet. So they all put in their rings and like, Jesus, Lord, whatever. So I took more notes listening to you guys than I did in preparation. First of all, I own the movie in a steelbook. I paid extra for the steelbook. I didn't hate it by any means necessary. Did I love it? No. I think that's pretty much the general consensus for the most part, besides TJ. Jennifer Nettles, seriously, get somebody else. Get somebody else. I've never seen her act in anything. I do need to watch The Righteous Gemstones. I can admit that, but I've never seen her act in anything. I'm like, who is this? And Lindsay called. I couldn't pick her out of a lineup. Lindsay, when we watched the trailer, she's like, "That's the Sugarland. Is that the name of the band? That Sugarland girl." I'm like, why? Why? The eye scene, I think that was Danny McBride's writing. I don't know why, but when I watched it and felt it, I'm like, Danny McBride wrote that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. That's just how I felt. And my notes are all over the place. But budget, it was a $30 million budget. They've made 137 so far. So they're doing okay, which is it's kind of also strange why they pulled David Gordon Green, if that's what happened, or he just decided to step away, because it made its money back and then some. So
but they also have to cover their $400 million nut on 3 films.
They're also thinking future, and when you've got bad reviews and bad ratings out the wazoo, they start to look at, well, this made money because it had the name. Is the next one going to make as much once people?
You're making me Miss Vrabel. You're making me Miss Vrabel with that comment. That's what happened to Mikey.
I almost guarantee that they're especially with David Gordon Green attached to Exorcist trilogy, having just come off the Halloween trilogy. If you look at the box office on all those films, the first one did really great, second one not as much, and the third one the worst of all 3. And if they're
they put them on
those,
streaming.
That's true.
They dual release. That's where they fucked up. They dual released it like that because
they lost a lot of box office.
Yeah, people like me. Oh, I don't have to move from my couch to watch this movie I want to watch. Okay, sweet.
And that was a COVID decision to some extent too.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I love the church scene, which is what's behind me. It reminded me of The Night Before, which I think everyone's seen except Kellen. I made a fun video for this week, but it just reminded me. I just kept waiting for Seth Rogen, like, hallelujah, like just stand up. That's what it reminded me of 100%.
That was my favorite scene, and for a totally unrelated reason, because I just thought when she come out with all those crumbs and the wine or juice, whatever it was, all over her, I was like, wow, somebody really likes communion.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about that scene that I really liked. And like I said, I liked the ending where they had to choose, and you see the character of people in that scenario. I enjoyed that because I like movies that put you in an impossible situation too. Like, what would you do in that scenario? More than likely, we would probably be the selfish ones, like the dad. Maybe we wouldn't. I don't know. I thought the little African American girl was great. She's probably the best actor in the film, and she's creepy as shit. If you look over Kellen's shoulder, you can see
that's me.
Yeah, that face she's making is very creepy. Okay, go back to TJ. I'm sorry I'm all over the place because I was just taking notes and I did not take them in a particular order. going back to TJ and the demon. I read, and I didn't do a deep dive into that because I was like, where did they pick this up? They just fell in a hole and we're in hell. I read a couple of people said the demon was always animalistic, so they could have gotten from an owl or some other creature.
Well, then show
but
it.
I don't know. But
Well-
they do say, the demon does say, like, do you know what your cunting daughter did? And we're like, no, actually, we don't know what she did. Let us know. And maybe
Or better
the next
yet, let
film,
the screenwriter know.
right? Maybe the
I
next film
felt
would
like
have told
that
us.
line was just like a cheap pull from the original. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
can
feel
see
like
that
it
too.
didn't feel like a genuine line. It just felt like it. Like,
100%.
Somebody
100%.
just
It was
wanted to
fan
say
service.
that.
Yeah, it was fan service, which takes me back to another point on here. Is like the mom and Reagan coming back. I love that. It did feel forced with the mom. Obviously, Reagan was just like, "Hey, what's up? Who is it? Can't see you because my eyes are fucking gone." So I finally get you back in my life, and I can't see you. That was nice. I think. Okay, so was it a good Exorcist flick? What is a good Exorcist flick? Name me 3
You
that
can't.
you're like,
They
these
don't
are the
exist.
best.
There's 2 at
the
best.
70s Exorcist.
It's not a franchise really that's popular. That's the other thing. It's not a franchise that's always made money. I was really surprised they brought it back because it's like that's almost like them being like, let's make a Children of the Corn movie. It's like, okay,
Which they did, and
Like-
it sucked. But that was David Gordon Green saying, I can get this. I can make something good out of it. It was just his ego. And I
Yeah.
like the guy. I don't know. Like, I don't have anything against him. I just saw him as an actor in Bones and all. I'm like, that's David Gordon Green. Kellen hates you. But, when I was thinking about it, I'm like, there's some decent Exorcist movies. Like My Best Friend's Exorcism, which came out in the last 2 years, which is a Grady Hendrix novel. That was fun. The possession of some, there's a few out there that are decent, but there's none out there where you're like, hey, come watch this movie. And maybe it's because it's new and it's fresh, but this would be probably top 10 exorcism movies I've seen. I just recently watched the whole series from start to finish.
Okay, real quick, how good of a movie could it be though if we've admitted that every Exorcist movie except a small portion are good if it's top 10 of a pile of garbage?
Hey,
It's top 10
top
Exorcist
10
movie
still top 10.
out of a whole heaping pile of crap.
Hey,
That's not high praise.
yeah, the second one wasn't good. If you take Linda Blair out of it, I would never watch it again. But even now, like this one, TJ, you said was forgettable. So was that one. Like, even as you mentioned it earlier, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, what happened in that one? I said, I think there's a ballet scene. But
It's
that's
such
all
a
I
weird
remember.
thing where they like can communicate through their brains, but only certain people can do it. And then,
So it's The
the
Shining.
voice of Darth Vader.
I
shows
think the
up and tries to
screenwriter
do
watched
stuff.
Saturday Night Fever or something before they wrote that movie. It was
That
like
movie's
very
wild.
It was very odd.
Yeah, and I will go back and watch it. I own it, just because I'm a completionist, so I have to own all of them, which I do. Even the beginning and Dominion, I have those on DVD because they didn't put them out on Blu-ray because they suck. So 3, I liked a lot.
3 is good.
Because it's fun, and like you said, one of the best jump scares in there with the shears, fantastic. I don't know. I was just like, I can't really name that many great Exorcist flicks. And here's the problem with this, and it's the same problem we had with most other remakes, like including Nightmare on Elm Street, which may be the worst remake there is.
I think it is.
But if we didn't know who Freddy Krueger was, how would we feel about that movie? And that's the Halloweens as well. If we didn't know that original story, how would we feel? The Exorcist, top tier, God tier, The Exorcist original. It's God tier. You can't touch it. You can't touch Halloween. And that's what David Gordon Green has done. But it's almost like a poison apple. Like, you're going to get a little taste of that apple, but the poison's going to catch up to you too. You can't replicate what's already been done, and you can't replace the way we, the fans, feel about these classics. Now, in your head, you're like, I can do this. 2 girls, guys. 2 girls, different demon. Check it out. 2 girls, 1 demon. But I don't
made that
know.
movie.
Oh, oh God.
Two
We would
Yes.
review it.
Girls.
Make it. David Gordon Green, you make that shit right now, we'll review it. But all that to say, he was doomed as soon as he got the rights to it. He was doomed. There's no way in hell we would have loved this movie. Now, liked it, maybe. It could have been better, yes. It did feel like two movies. The first hour, fantastic. The rest, sketch. But we already have in our mind what the Exorcist is, who it is, the demon, Reagan. We already have all that. So you can't replicate it, and we're never going to be satisfied. And that's what the first Scream comeback movie was about, was just toxic fandom, which
I think any movie you release today that has the Exorcist on it and it's claiming to be in that same world is doomed to have a lot of people hate it.
yeah,
no matter what
100%, 100%. So, sorry, David Gordon Green. It just wasn't meant to be. It wasn't in the stars. Now let's close it out with this question. I thought about this. Also, if anybody else seen the Exorcist series that was on Fox?
I never did.
I never watched.
It was great. It only
I've
lasted 2
heard
seasons.
decent things about it,
But the second season was Henry Cho, Harold and Kumar.
yeah,
Dad, like a foster family, and I'm pretty sure the demon in that one is animalistic or nature related too, which is what could have been this one. So here's the question for everybody. As of right now, is David Gordon Green a franchise killer?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I loved Halloween series, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, I also love the Halloween series, and I liked the ending of Halloween Ends. But I just know general sentiment now, especially after this movie, 100%.
Kellen?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta say, yeah, just because, I mean, two of the biggest names in horror, and both of them turned out garbage. I mean, I know TJ and John and Jay, y'all liked the new Halloween trilogy, but for the general audience, yeah, he's taking beloved franchises and desecrating them.
Yeah.
He's like,
I don't think he'll get a third opportunity to do that either.
It would have to be a good script. Hey, go remake Jeepers Creepers again or something. He's like the new what's the guy always explosions?
Oh, Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. He's like the horror Michael Bay, But how much of the writing did he do?
Was Danny McBride a writer on this?
He was a writer and producer, I believe.
Because I feel like it's the combo of those two that gets things wonky sometimes.
You could make the argument in his favor that it's a societal problem, because both the new Halloween franchise and this movie try to do too much. And I think that's because us as viewers are so numb to everything now. You almost have to, we're like cats with a laser pointer. Our attention gets pulled away so quickly they almost feel like they have to throw so much at you to keep your attention, or to even get buzz. It has to be bigger, better, a lot more violent, a lot more gore, a lot more whatever, to keep your attention, to one, set itself apart in the modern age of cinema, but to still try to keep the original, face and name recognition with The Exorcist, with Halloween. So I feel like it's maybe not so much his fault as it is our fault for expecting too much. I mean, the poster behind John, too. Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving movie didn't do too much. It had some great kills in it, but it just kind of made its own niche in the slasher film genre, without having to be almost like a big budget. And maybe that's part Marvel DC fault, maybe whatever. They want to make these intimate, scary films feel like big budget films, and it's not worked yet.
if he would have stopped at Halloween 2018, I think he would be really respected. I think if he would have just ended right at H18 and you see the fire and the house, and they never made a sequel, a lot of people now would be like, holy shit, he's pretty good. Like,
but they bat that money truck up, and it's hard to say no to.
And if you stop there, that would have been a fitting ending to that story.
Yeah.
I agree with the trying to do too much, and it is our fault. We're dicks. The fans are dicks.
Well, also we're in the TikTok generation. Like, if I watch a horror film with my daughter and she spends even 30% of the time watching the movie more than her phone, I call it a win and a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to keep people's attention, and the only way to do that is to have necks snapped and eyes gouged, and something happening within 5 minutes of every scene.
The last time I felt about them trying to do too much and it not working was Hellboy, I think 2018 with David Harbour. I love Hellboy, everything about it, but they introduced so many new characters in that movie, and like it made your head spin. And like they did that in the second one too, but it went to a underworld area, and it was they gave you a whole backstory in the beginning. Like they came out swinging on that new Hellboy, and like, look at all these people. And like, where's Abe Sapien? Oh, we don't have him. We have the guy from Lost who can turn into a jaguar. You're like, who? Like, if you're not familiar with the comic books and that stuff, it's just a little wacky. And they do the ectoplasm stuff too, and it looks
No
ridiculous.
Lobster Johnson.
Lobster Johnson was there. He was there. He shows up twice. Have you seen the new? You haven't seen David Harbour?
I've seen the Harbor one. Yeah.
You want to see the claw? He's like, that was awesome. It's a good movie, and he's a great Hellboy. But that goes into the same thing. Like, I'd rather have a decent Hellboy than no Hellboy, like, and they're remaking it again already with some dude I've never heard of. So anyways, all right, let's give our kills rankings and then let's sign off. I think the priest from the top rope and getting his neck snapped is probably my favorite kill.
Is that the only kill? Because they don't kill Ellen Burstyn.
Well,
the girl,
the little girl, but she just kind of dies.
Which I hated that. I hated that because of her selfish father. She gets drugged down into.
Yeah,
sure. And yeah, you make a good point. There really weren't that many kills. So let's just go with our rankings. I want to go last. TJ, go first.
Man, I haven't even thought about what I'd give this as a ranking because there's so many ways I could go. Like, I see the middle of the road argument, but the fact that it pisses me off so much, I have to go a little lower than that. But I mean, technically, it's decently shot. It's just poorly structured. The little girl, what was her name? Angela.
Yeah.
She did a good job for that
great.
age of an actress. I'll give it a 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5, Johnny boy.
So David Gordon Green, he was also. It's funny. He was attached to, I think, the Hellraiser for a while. Something, I don't know if it was HBO Max. I don't know if that's still happening, but he did. That was the first thing, and then he got on this Exorcist franchise.
That last Hellraiser was a good remake. That gets forgotten, but that was a good remake.
As far as like, the rating, I mean, it's a split down the middle movie. The ending, they really tried to nail home this idea that, it's not about faith or religion. It's about people and grouping together, and it takes a village. Like, it's the people. It's not the faith. Like, that's.
They literally say it takes a village, in case you couldn't pick up on the nuance of that.
They should. Then we're fucked. We're fucked. We have to do it that way.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, the original Exorcist is like a great thing. It's not just a good horror film. It's a good film. It's not just. It's way more than just a horror film. And this movie is basically just like a Blumhouse cheesy horror film. At the end of the day, I mean, it's. I want to say about 2.5 out of 5. I wanted to say 3 out of 5, but I can't. I would say 2.5 out of 5 because it's exactly 50-50 for me split.
Elon?
Yeah. It's all been covered. It's one of those. It's going to be hard for anybody to ever touch the original. It's one of those cultural phenomenon films where it grips the public. Same thing with the first Paranormal Activity. The same thing with the Woods one that the campers, whatever that one's called. No, the 3 people that all suck and we hope they die. What was that movie? This is so bad. I didn't remember it. The Blair Witch. There. They try. They try. All those movies. The Exorcist is in its own category, but they all capture the attention of the nation, quote unquote, and become a cultural phenomenon within the genre. And they immediately try to do that money grab, like TJ was talking about, where they take the name and try to make something else, and it never quite hits. And this is just another example of that. So that being said, too, I mean, it's like I said, it didn't do anything for me, good or bad.
Yeah. So I did 2.5 too, because it's just right down the middle for me. I'll rewatch it. I own it. So I think that puts us at a 2.25. So we'll call that a 2. So Exorcist Believer.
Yes, I brought us down a
2.
whole half a point.
I almost went 3 until John didn't, and I'm like, I don't want to be that guy.
I was contemplating it, honestly. I was,
yeah, but don't get us wrong. Watch it, like give it a chance, because one of the highest rated horror movies of last year, and it's on everybody's top 10, top 20 list, is Talk to Me, and we, half of us didn't care for that one. So make your own assumptions and go watch it, and then see what you think.
Well, what's funny you say that though, because that's what the little girls were in the woods trying to do. They're trying to do the talk to me without the hand.
They fucked around and they found out.
They did.
That's what happened.
And
This
we all
movie-
found
Do we
out,
know
too.
what they fucked around with? No. Who? No, we have no clue. But
This-
they found out somehow.
This movie's better than Talk to Me. I'll say that. I don't care what anyone says. It's better.
Hey, I'm with you, and
Yeah.
I don't know why. But
I
I'm with you.
disagree vehemently with all of you.
Yeah, you're the only one that Talk to Me. So, all right, that's a wrap for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or to wherever you're listening to this podcast now. We would greatly appreciate it. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on TikTok. Kellen and I have been trying to build the TikTok, doing a good job of that. So come over there. TJ and John do dances every Friday at 7 p.m.
Every Friday, no
So,
shirts allowed.
No
Mhm.
shirts allowed. So be sure to come check that out.
Just
And if you're on Facebook, we have a group. Come join that too. And come back next
Never
week.
do
We're
that
gonna
again,
talk-
TJ.
What?
I'm so glad the camera only goes to who's talking, because
Oh,
we
you
would
mean
shut down if
this?
TJ
was he doing like a Buffalo Bill or something?
I
He
see
was,
now.
he was.
Good
I'm pretty sure I
night,
heard him mouthing,
horses.
"Would you me? I'm pretty sure that's what he was mouthing into the microphone."
As Q Lazarus plays in the background.
Yeah, I
Perfect.
can't back
All right.
up right now.
Next week, we recorded this one a bit ago. I kind of forgot about it, but we're going to be talking to the guys from HeBGB TV on Screenbox, Eric Griffin and Jack McClellan. So come back and check that one out. If you don't have Screenbox, you can get it for free for 7 days. So go check that out, watch it, come back and listen to us next week. All right, sign off. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. And until next time,
Keep it spooky. And don't go in the woods and talk to the devil.
or the owls or whatever animals. Oh, you know what else I didn't say that I wanted to say in my notes about the speed of the possession? If I'm not mistaken, the other exorcists don't have the vapor or the ectoplasm, right? So maybe that's why it was faster, because it was a different entity, kind of like it was still a demon, but it worked in different ways. So that could have affected the speed.
I took that as
program.
halitosis and really bad.
Maybe it's because in this movie they literally went to hell. I mean, in the other Exorcist, she gets possessed. But
I
they're
think they just did drugs and were walking barefoot on the pavement back behind a Taco Bell somewhere. And that's how
What did they still? I want to know what they did to get to hell. And like I said, maybe
they're
his
watching
trilogy comes
this
back to
movie
that.
on a loop. That's hell.
They're watching Skinamarink. They're like, fuck it. I'd rather go to hell.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
If
go
you see this,
watch
like,
the
you got-
Heretic Exorcist 2 on a loop and been
Oh, that is hell. Exorcist 2.
All
that
right, well,
movie John made me watch
watch.
Things.
Oh,
Good
God.
gracious.
Peer
That's
pressure.
an hour and a
That
half of my life I will never get back, John.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
would
and you know
want to?
what? The director, you blocked me on Facebook, so there you go. Jerk.
Yeah.
I'm not even
Hilarious.
gonna name his name.
Hilarious. I'm like, dude, we're asking you because of the fucking movie Things, man. Like, we're
Yeah.
not asking you for whatever bullshit CGI zombie movie you're making right now.
That
So-
movie feels like one of those guys was like, I want to make a movie, and his drunk ass uncle after Thanksgiving was like, I know I'll make a movie. I'll make a good movie for you. I shoot that movie real good.
I got
And
camera.
that's what
Let's
we
do it.
got.
They crushed a couple buds and then just well, that's the thing about Things, though, as awful as it is. I know he didn't intend for it to be awful, but as soon as we see it, we know it's going to be awful. It's shot, by hand. Like, that stuff I don't hold quite accountable as like the newer films that are awful, like the Skinamarink. Like, you knew what the fuck you were doing. They were trying.
And you had a
It was
budget.
time. You had a budget. You knew what the fuck you were doing. Also, I almost sent a picture of it yesterday, but I didn't. Great Escape has Skinamarink. You can buy it there in Nashville for $2.99. That's
I want to say
That's
that
hilarious.
Skinamarink was shot for like $10,000 or something ridiculous like
I
that.
hope
That's way
so.
too much. It's way too much. What did they spend it all on light bulbs? The one thing about Things I will say in its defense, the last 10 minutes of that movie are comedic gold by accident. The voiceover between the doctor and that guy, the overdubbing of their voices had me rolling. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. It was the craziest thing. Oh, they're gonna come and get you. This is your fault. Oh no. I mean, it was so bad. They couldn't have tried to make stop motion for that last bit and it been any worse. The
Skinamarink,
mouths weren't even moving at certain points and words were coming out. Like they just gave up. They were just phoning it in. We just gotta get this finished.
Skinamarink, Canadian dollars, $15,000 budget.
What is that, like 2.6 million US?
Well, they're
It's
usually
close.
below us. It's probably
Is that like
12, 13
8 bottles of
grand.
maple syrup?
Hey, now, E, watch it.
Has there
Plates of
been a
poutine from Tim
film?
Hortons?
Has there been a film that's been hyped up like that? That's been that bad? I mean, like everyone that says that's a masterpiece, I'm like, you're either lying or you're being told to say that.
Avatar.
Maybe they're getting
Avatar.
cut off after
That's true.
Peace, and what they're saying is a masterpiece of shit.
Yeah, like there's nothing to it. It's
I don't think
literally-
this one. We think this one's. We're talking about Skinamarink, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We thought it was overhyped because a little bit of word of mouth and like because we're on social media, but
The
I
trailer
didn't
was
see it
good.
anywhere else.
But if you
It's-
saw the trailer, you saw the
intrigues
movie.
you. But have you anybody else seen the Outwaters?
I haven't.
Not yet.
1,000 times better. Watch it. It's kind. TJ, you might hate it because of the way it's shot. At one point, probably for 30 or plus minutes, it's just black with her flashlight light is all you can see. Her
That pisses me off.
around, yeah, but it's a lot better. And Screenbox is good. They put like little short films out that go with it. So I've been watching those. But
Screenbox
plus-
is also only $4.99 on Amazon. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can do an add-on for $5.
Boom.
Nice.
do it. No free shout outs. All right. If you stay this long, thanks. This is just our rambling session. So I'm gonna go eat dinner now.
We talked twice as long about this movie than I thought deserved.
Oh, Exorcist. Yeah. Well,
That's fair. All right.
Well, that movie was twice as long as it deserved. So
That's
Here we
very
are.
next
true.
week, but next week we get to talk about a good movie, like a
Yes.
great movie. So
what movie's that?
Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah. I hadn't seen that. in a
Yes,
long
yes,
time.
yes. I am
I'm gonna be in
excited
the
to rewatch
minority.
that.
Besides
See y'all
Hellboy, I
next
think that might
week.
be Kellen's first Guillermo del Toro movie, right?
I don't think so.
Have you seen it? Or you haven't seen it?
He
I just
watched Pan's
watched it. I
Labyrinth.
just watched it like a week and a half ago.
Oh,
I haven't seen
no.
it since
You
like
didn't love it?
2006. It's been a while.
I love
I
it.
did not love it.
I saw it in the
Huh.
theater when it first came out.
Same. All right, we'll talk about it next week with
All
Omen
right.
Bringer. And if you're listening, we're recording next week. I don't know when it's coming out.
Well,
so
she
you can
probably
just-
knows Pan. She knows all those
she
pagan
does. You can
gods.
just tingle with anticipation on that one.